Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time here, my name is Fumilola. I'm a double board certified pharmacist. I am a mom of two, a wife, a sister, a daughter. I am on a self journey to discover myself. And I'm happy to report that the journey is it's going okay. This is part of the journey. Talking about stuff I like and hoping that you guys enjoy it as well. So we're gonna be talking about surrogacy today. When I decided I wanted to talk about this, there's been a lot of back and forth on social media about this topic, especially since Ife or Diary of a Niger Girl talked about, she made a video about surrogacy. I personally feel like that video was in bad taste, but I like Ife, so I'm not going to say anything. I feel like it was in bad taste. I feel like after the fact, she would have recognized that she could have talked about it in a different way. Like, I don't disagree with the spirit of the message. I disagree with the how of the message, right? So when I wanted to talk about surrogacy today, I thought about what angle I wanted to talk about it from. And again, I decided that I was going to talk about it a little bit from how I view it and a little bit from research as well, right? Most of the people that I know that have had kids will often say things like, I want another baby, but if somebody can bring me the baby, not, I don't want to be pregnant. I just want somebody to bring me the baby. Newsflash, you are looking for a surrogate. You might not know what you're asking, but that's exactly what you're asking. So in the spirit of that, most people that I know that have been through pregnancy don't want to go through it again. Even when they want a baby, like they would gladly take a baby, but they don't. That's to tell you just how difficult pregnancy is. So today we're going to be talking about surrogacy from an educative point of view and to try and give more information about it, because for a lot of people it's just, either you're for it or you're against it, but it's not so black and white, right? There's a lot of gray areas when it comes to surrogacy. There's a lot of, coloring outside the box, and there's a lot of exploitation that can happen if it's not properly done, right? So today we're going to be talking about we're going to be looking at surrogacy from the side. Okay, so some of the terms we're going to be using is the surrogate and IP. IP are intended parents, so intended mom, intended dad. Those are surrogacy terms. So we're going to be looking at surrogacy from the IPs and then from the surrogates perspective just a little bit. I combed Reddit threads and, you know, Facebook threads to try and understand perspectives from people who have been surrogates and people who have been intended parents, because not just about what the chat GPT tells you or what you research from textbooks, people's real life experiences that I have combed through to try to put this video together for you. I hope that you enjoy it. And remember to like and subscribe and share to someone that you think will benefit from this as well. So whether you're considering being a surrogate or being an intended parent, right? There are pros and there are cons to using a surrogate or being a surrogate. First of all, what is surrogacy? Surrogacy is an arrangement where a woman carries and delivers, a baby for an intended individual or couple, right? I say individual because nowadays we see women. I think Iniedo is a popular person who came and said, "Oh, she used a surrogate because she wanted a baby and all that." Or a couple, there are different types of surrogacies, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how to protect yourself, whether as intended parent or as a surrogate. Um, Types of surrogacy. There's like the traditional one where let's say the intended mom is the one that has the fertility problem, so maybe her eggs are not good, so they use the surrogate eggs plus the sperm from either the intended father or a sperm donor. So this is basically like adopting a child, if you ask me, especially if you're an individual. Like, let's say Iniedo, for example, now did traditional surrogacy. It's like adopting a child because you're not with the baby's father or whatever. You just want a baby. So in my again personal opinion has slipped into this conversation. My personal opinion, if you're an individual and you're going to go for traditional surrogacy, why not just adopt a baby? Like, it's the same thing. And then there's gestational surrogacy. Now, in this case, there's zero biological connection to the surrogate. I say zero with a pinch of salt because I mean you can't carry a baby without some crossing, right? So in this case, it would be the intended mom's eggs and the intended dad's sperm will be fertilized. It's basically IVF. Fertilized outside the body, and then it will be introduced in as an embryo into the surrogate. um so this usually involves a lot of, even like the traditional too might involve fertility clinics, like medications, procedures, consultations, office hospital visits and all that. These are some of the things that you need to prepare yourself for, whether you're an intended parent or a surrogate, especially if you're a surrogate. Like, some people just think, oh, it's not pregnancy, I've done it before. We're going to talk about that, but yeah. So there's traditional and there's gestational. So, pros and cons. I'm going to talk about this first from the side of the intended parents. The biggest pro of surrogacy is that you're going to get a baby without pregnancy hassles. I mean, that is without stating. That's the biggest pro of this situation. Like, that's the biggest plus. If someone could just come and give me a baby right now, everybody knows I want twins and I want, another child. Like, someone can just come now and just say, we have done this for you. Just, take your twins. I will be, I mean, so that's the biggest pro of surrogacy. Another pro will be a path to parenthood for people who have struggled. So for people who have had fertility issues, or unable to conceive, or unable to carry a baby to term, I mean, this is a blessing. This is God using science to bless you, to have what you want and to be able to get it. So yeah, that's another pro. Um, Another pro of surrogacy is because of medical advancements, right? Um, we can now have, like, you can implant two, three embryos, right? You can get your twins, you can get triplets through a surrogate. And like I said, it's like gestational surrogacy is, I mean, now more viable and more safe than ever, because there's a lot of advancements, checking on the baby, checking hormonal levels, checking profile of the surrogate, all those things. Like, and then once you plan it from the start, right, there is a definite timeline if all things go well. Unlike adoption, where you can say you want to adopt a child today and 5 years down the line, you're still waiting to get that baby, right? So that's another pro. Like, there's a definite timeline. And if we're going to think about it in terms of like total cost. For example, if you hire your agency, do your due diligence, find your surrogate fit, you guys do implantation, everything. At the end of the day, you realize that the cost for that is most times cheaper than various IVF cycles, and you're trying to adopt, and the timing, the emotional, so there is a pro for surrogacy in that, because you know that once the implantation is done, everything goes well, the surrogate has gone past the first trimester, there's a 90 something percent chance that they're going to carry to term, and it's like a 1 year period, like 12 to 18 months, practically, because of, in case they need to do fertility, IVF, implantation, blah blah blah. So there's a timeline. You can hope basically about it. So that's another pro. Another pro of surrogacy, which, like I said before, is most of the reasons why people do surrogacy, is biological slash genetic relations to the baby versus adoption, right? So you know that this child is bone of your bone and flesh of your flesh. My personal preferences are weighing in through my eye rolling, I'm sorry. But yeah, for some people, it is super important that the offspring that they raise is their child, right? So it's a big deal for some people. They don't want to adopt. Um, then, so yeah, those are some of the pros. Not exhaustive, but I mean, yeah, those are some of the major pros of using a surrogate, right? Completion of your family, having a baby without all the issues with pregnancy, especially if a person has infertility issues or they've had really difficult pregnancies before. If you want a baby, you're not able to go through another pregnancy, you're not able to get pregnant, or the part that I don't like is where they say, "Oh, you just can't afford it, so you." And if that's what you're doing, I mean, that's between you and yourself. You don't need to put it on social media for us to hear. That's a little bit insensitive. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the cons of surrogacy. Another con is lack of family support. So especially, and I put this in there because as Nigerians slash Africans slash colored people, and I group all of us together because we're basically the same. There's still this whole thing around surrogacy, like, where can you carry your child by yourself? Must somebody carry for you? You're just being lazy. You're being blah blah. You're being proud, blah blah blah. But that's not. that's not what it is, right? So if family doesn't support, which is why a lot of people still go ahead to hide when there isn't surrogates and only come out to talk about it after the child is born, or don't even talk about it at all. So you have people wearing fake bellies, pretending they're pregnant because they don't want their family to know that they use the surrogates, right? So that's another thing that you have to deal with. Another con will be lack of guaranteed success. So it's it's pregnancy after all, and anyone who's been pregnant before tells you that now God hand we day basically when you're pregnant, right? From the day of conception till the day of delivery, you are not your own. And I don't care how many medical interventions, how many great genetic advancements have been made, there is no guarantee. Like there is still a lot of things that can go wrong throughout the pregnancy. And I will talk a little bit more about this when I'm talking about looking at it from the surrogates angle, right? So yeah, those are some of the cons that I want to talk about. I'm sure there's like this is not an exhaustive list, of course. If you know any, like these things that we discuss, I mean, if you have other points, you can always put them in the comment section. We're all gonna learn here. So now I want to talk about what you need to look out for in a surrogate, right? So you're an intended parent or intended individual, you want a baby, what you need to look out for in a surrogate. First of all, it'll be good for you to work with a licensed and reputable agency. Um, oh, I was going to talk about people who may need surrogates, but I think that's implied, right? So before I talk about what to look out for in a surrogate, I'm going to talk about people who may actually need surrogates. So the people who may need surrogates are, if for any reason I think I already said that before, you're unable to carry a child, infertility issues, age issues, medical issues, emotional or psychological issues, and for any reason you're not able to carry a pregnancy to term or you're not able to conceive, surrogacy is for you. So make sure that you sit in on the interviews for the surrogates just to kind of feel the vibe coming from them, right? So even when the agency say, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to interview them," ask when. And so when they're doing like interviews, also if the agency has, or even if the agency has already reviewed their file, make sure that you still ask for the file, review their skill sets, their hobbies, like get to know the person basically, which ties into my previous point of sitting in on their interviews and all that. So you also want to consider age. I already said before, 20 to 42 is the age that is for surrogacy. But again, remember that the older you are, the more the risks in pregnancy. That's the reality of the situation, right? So, I mean, there are anomalies where people are perfectly healthy after 40, I think 42 is the surrogacy age. But yeah, you want to make sure that, yeah, and then I'm going to also talk about something about this aging thing when I get to the side of the surrogates. Another thing you want to do is that you should ask about their family history because even though they are not the egg donor, they are still going to be carrying the baby, right? So you want to ask about their family history. In their family, do they have a history of GD? Do they have a history like things that happen to them in pregnancy, right? You want to know all those things. I just get to know them basically, so you can know what you're getting into for the long haul. I think that at the end of all this, the takeaway from things you need to do when you want to get a surrogate is you need to know your surrogates well. You need to understand the person's history medically, psychologically. You need to feel right and vibrate with the person that's going to be carrying your baby, and legal needs to be on point. You need to have it all spelled out, right? So next we're going to be talking about questions you want to ask your surrogates, like, because yeah, we've talked about all these things, but sometimes what do you ask these people? How do you get a feel of who they are? So we'll just go through a few questions. So from the angle of the surrogate, the first thing I'm going to talk about is emotional readiness. Okay. You might think that you're ready to carry someone else's child, but are you ready? Like, it doesn't matter if you've carried pregnancies before. I think one of the prevailing things that a lot of people talked about on the Reddit thread for surrogates that I went through is that they didn't realize that it was going to be this hard. You know, a lot of them have already been through 1, 2, 3 pregnancies and thought, oh, those were easy. And then they decide, okay, I'm going to be a surrogate. Most of them actually said factually that they were doing it for the money. Thought this money will help me and all that. And then they realized, A, it's like the longer you have been away from being pregnant, I can tell you that for free. I mean, my first child is almost going to be 10. My daughter is just, my first child is going to be 9. My daughter is going to be 5. Even that small age, well, relatively not too long age gap in between, I still saw Shaggy. Like it was like I had forgotten how it was to be pregnant. So imagine that your last child is 12, 13, and you decide you want to become a surrogate. Beautiful. And then you get into it and you realize, oh my God, it's not as easy as I remember. First of all, your body is not the same. Second of all, it's almost as if your body has forgotten how it is. It's not like riding a bike. I mean, it's almost like your body has forgotten how it is to be, pregnant. And then after you go through all that, there's a separation. So you need to be emotionally ready for these things, right? So first question you want to ask yourself is, what is my emotional readiness state, right? Another thing that you want to do is your physical health. So most people just think that the younger you are, the easier pregnancy is. By the way, this is proven fact by doctors and pregnant people everywhere, myself inclusive. So sometimes the physical health is no longer what it used to be, but sometimes people don't realize that and they just think, oh, because my pregnancies were easy, I'll just do this one as well and I'll just pop, 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 and I'll just get out, get the money and move. No, you need to get a proper physical. You need to be sure that you're ready for the challenges of pregnancy at whatever age you decide to carry the surrogate. Um, Next thing you want to be sure is you have a strong support system. Because remember that even if this is a job, and I use air quotes for that, even if this is a job, remember that you're still going to be pregnant there. It's going to come with all the, you cannot bend down, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. You have a strong support system. Are you going to be living by yourself while you're surrogating, or are you going to have, do you have a partner, maybe a spouse who is in this together with you, or do you have a sibling, someone living with you? Because you're going to need all that help. Or is it going to be signed into the agreement with the IPs, intended parents, to have somebody wait on you? These are things that you need to talk about. Support system, how are you going to do? Because even if it's a job or not a job, you are still going to be pregnant. And all the things that come with pregnancy are going to come with it. So how are you going to handle that? Another thing is, are you ready for the commitment, the time commitment? Because this is a 12 to 18 months job, you know? Because, and then you have to think about everything that goes with it. So the doctor's appointments, the scans. In fact, before the pregnancy gone, are you ready for the hormonals? Because sometimes it's IVF, right? It's like implantation. Are you ready for the hormonal injections? Are you ready for the process? Like, have you thought about it? Embryo transfer, the pregnancy, postpartum recovery, all that. So, are you ready for this commitment? Because it's not just 9 months. Like anybody knows, pregnancy is almost 2 years. So is that something that you're ready for? Have you drawn it into your plan? You know, do you understand the legal and the ethical considerations surrounding what you're about to do? Okay, so now I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about before. When I was talking about legals for the IPs, on one of all these Facebook groups, all these moms and on one of all these Facebook groups, all these moms and co, someone brought an agreement to the group, and she screenshot and she was like, moms, do you think that this is a good agreement for me? In the beginning, it looked like a good agreement. They were going to pay her 4 million, which I mean, I know that for some people that's a lot of money, but 4 million to carry pregnant. Anyway, but this is not even the icing on the cake. They're going to pay her 4 million to carry pregnancy. Now, the second part of that agreement said that the medicals and everything will cost 4 million, and that it is considered already paid for. You guys, if you see the way they worded that agreement, they were trying to take advantage of that person. Like, they would have given her that 4 million and they expected her to pay for all her doctor's appointment and stuff. Like, everybody was just like, get yourself a lawyer. Like, everybody's like, obviously this person may not be able to afford a lawyer. If they can write this agreement and give it to her and believe that they're going to get away with it, it means that they really want to take advantage of this person. So on the group, people were like, please, if you're here, if you're a lawyer, can you just please help her read through a document, blah blah blah. So if you're going to be surrogating, this is something that you want to take seriously, because remember that the people that you're doing this for are used to getting away with legalized murder, basically. Most people who can afford a surrogate are people who have money, there are people who are educated, there are people who have lawyers at their beck and call, who know how to twist words and everything. So you also have to make sure that you are covered, by yourself. So legal, and then do your research as well. If you are going to be surrogating, make sure that the country that you're surrogating in, you know the laws that surround it, you know your rights. This is like the most important part of this whole thing, because at the end of the day, they whip out a contract and say, "Oh, you signed this and you signed that." You'll feel cheated and all, but the law is not always like morally right. It just needs to be correct legally, right? So make sure you protect yourself legally. Have you thought about what your relationship is going to be with intended parents? Have you thought about if you want to stay in contact with the child? Have you just thought about the communication style? Do you want them to call you every day? Do you want them to check in on you? Do you want them to live with? Do you want to live with them so that they can look after you if you don't have a support system? Is that something that you're okay with? Are you ready for the boundary shading that is going to happen if you want to live with them? You know, all those things. Have you prepped your mind for that? Don't go and start catching feelings for the baby daddy. You know, all those type of things. You need to talk to yourself about it. So, what's your relationship going to be? Emotional boundaries, stuff like that. So, to round up our video, I will just gloss over the things that I talked about. So, you want to be an IP, understand, even if you want to be a surrogate. So, this is for both people. Understand the type of surrogacy that you want. Legal counsel is important. Like, don't joke with it. Emotional readiness matters. Choosing the right surrogates and fits for your family takes time. Don't be in a rush. Even as a surrogate, choosing the right IPs for you. Don't be in a rush. Don't think that, oh, just because you can afford it. Make sure that all your ducks align. You have, like, you feel good about doing this for these people, and so yeah. And then communication is key. Make sure that everything is ironed out and fleshed out from the beginning. Talk about your boundaries early. Be prepared for the financial commitment as IPs, even as surrogates. You need to be prepared, because sometimes, like, as a surrogate, draw up your contract properly so that even if you are buying bottled water case, somebody's paying for it, because these are the things that you're doing to make sure that this child is healthy, right? So also, remember that the process is not always predictable and it doesn't end in success 100% of the time. Are you ready for that as well? Again, it's a pregnancy. Complications may arise. Are you ready for that? As the IPs, as a surrogate, what is the plan if complications arise? So make sure that you discuss post-birth contact preferences on both sides and agree. Do you want to? I know someone who's surrogated for, she's Nigerian, surrogated for a French couple. So she said they still send, the kid is like 10 years old now or something like that. They still send her pictures of the baby. I think they're in France. They still send her pictures of the baby. She still talks to the kids sometimes. I think she's done it twice. So she said the third time didn't take. Anyway, so like, make sure that you, like, all these things are spelled out. And finally, make sure that your payments are structured properly on both sides so that they will not be cases of feeling cheated and everything. Okay, this video went on longer than I thought it was going to go on for. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I hope that you learned something today. I hope that I have been able to impact your views on surrogacy a little bit. Please share this video, like and subscribe. You guys should watch my videos. You guys are not watching my videos. Fun fact, every time I call a friend on video call, I'm like, "Oh my god, you've cut your hair." I'm like, "This is how I know you're not watching my YouTube, because I've cut my hair over a month ago." Anyway, that's by the way. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your time. Love you much. Bye.